So I'll be reacting to John Peterson and Andrew Schulz show on Harry Potter. Jordan Peterson is one of my favorite new philosophers. Andrew is one of my favorite comedians, and Harry Potter is one of my favorite movies of all time. So let's get into it.
In my last book, in Beyond Order, I talked a fair bit about Harry Potter, and
Yeah.
a lot of the people who like to take pot shots at me took pot shots at that because, I don't know, they think Harry Potter's beneath their notice or something. But, I kind of noticed that J.K. Rowling made several $billion building the biggest entertainment enterprise of the decade, and rose herself from, single mother status, unemployed single mother status, to richer than the Queen, and then occupied every movie screen for like 10 years.
Yeah.
Maybe something's going on there.
Yeah.
Well, these complex characters, they play out mythology, and if religion disappears in the culture in general, it pops up in our stories instantly, and that's exactly what's happened in the Marvel universe.
And what happened?
I mean,
with
you
Harry?
even have Thor, for God's sake. Thor is a god.
Yeah.
It's not even subtle.
Yeah.
You can't get rid of these stories. They come back no matter what you do. These stories come back.
So what was J.K. Rowling doing with Harry Potter?
Well, it's the battle between good and evil. I mean,
Right.
Voldemort is Satan for all intents and purposes.
Yeah.
So it's the battle between good and evil. I mean, the second volume in particular is St. George and the Dragon. It's Bilbo and the Dragon. Harry fights a giant snake that's under the castle. It's the same story as The Lord of the Rings. And that's the same story as what's the original story?
Hobbit.
Yeah, but far before that, the oldest story we have of that sort is a Mesopotamian creation myth where a god named Marduk attacks a giant dragon named Tiamat. And that's one of the oldest religious tracts that we have. It's symbolic of humanity, right? The human being goes out there and encounters the terrible unknown, often in reptilian form. And that terrible unknown, well, that's why that terrible unknown is often evil itself. And so in Christianity, you get this weird intermingling, for example, of the snake in the Garden of Eden with Satan. It's not obvious why there should be a connection.
Yeah.
Snake, Satan.
Yeah.
It's like, well, what's the worst snake? It's not a snake. It's snakes as such. Well, it's not snakes as such. It's predators as such. Reptilian predators. Wait a minute. It's not reptilian predators as such. It's enemies. It's human enemies. It's the enemy in our own soul. That's the progression of the thought.
Wait,
It's unbelievably sophisticated.
how does it go from-
insanely sophisticated?
How does it go from enemies to the enemies in our own soul?
Well, who's your worst enemy if it's not you? Who's your biggest obstacle if it's not you?
And
I mean, who do you contend with more than anyone
When Andrew does this, like his mind is going.
else if it's not you?
and to the Harry Potter thing, Harry Potter has a piece of Voldemort in him.
Yes, well, that's the original sin doctrine recreated.
So
It's also the case that he can't understand evil without it. It's also part of what makes him sophisticated, right? Because
Yes,
he's been touched by it.
Yeah.
So you can't understand. He couldn't understand evil without evil being in him, which is like if you follow Harry Potter, or if you watch it, when Voldemort tried to kill Harry, a part of his soul latched onto Harry. So Harry and Voldemort were connected. So I like where this is going. And recently I just started like researching Harry Potter folklore and checking it out and stuff like that. And it's interesting how the whole thing it goes deeper than the movie. So it's why I like some of these movies, why I really like Harry Potter. And then when Harry Potter came out, I was still like a young boy, so Harry Potter formed much of my boyish character up to now.
So is that what we got to do? Is just copy the Bible? Like,
We don't have a choice.
wait, what do you mean by that?
It happens whether we want it to or not. I mean, the Bible aggregated itself over centuries, right? I mean, no human being directly oriented that. It's not something that could happen over thousands and thousands of years.
This is just the greatest hits.
That's one way of thinking about it, yes.
And each one of these hits taps into something innate to us.
Yes. Otherwise we wouldn't remember it. We wouldn't have conserved it. It wouldn't stick in our memory. It wouldn't structure the way we think.
Okay, so very nice. I like Andrew Schulz because he's very, very funny, very non-PC, very plain, and of course Jordan Peterson too is non. So Andrew Schulz is like non-PC, non-serious guy. Then Jordan Peterson is a non-PC, serious guy. So I was excited to watch the conversation. So I'll keep reacting to many stuff. There's no direction for the reaction. It just whatever comes. See you guys another time.